guys. We're back on the Crappie Lake. Trying to catch them jigging today. This one I caught casting and jigging. If you look at our last episode, we showed you guys how to catch them trolling. And today I'm using a Blue Horizon. That's our first one of the morning. Let's see if we can get on to them here. Oh, that's a pretty one, guys. That's a pretty one. Get on up here. Woo! Look at that slabber. Look at that slabber dabber. Let me show you what I'm doing here. Put this bad boy in the well. So, on the last crappie episode you saw us, we were trolling around in here. Well, now I'm kind of marking them pretty good on the depth finder. So I'm just casting out. I got a light breeze coming into my face. We're fishing anywhere from 14 to 18 foot. So getting them little bitty 1/8 ounce jig heads down is a little tricky. So you got to count it down, watch your line real close. So when it hits the bottom, this nice little dribbles. And I'm just dribbling it on the bank, and I'm letting the wind just slowly blow the boat. So I'm kind of just like trolling, really. A lot of times I don't even reel in my slack because the boat is pushing with the wind. And it's just moving us across this big lake. There we go. Get it out there. Count it down, I don't know, 10 to 15 seconds. That little 1/8 ounce jig head's what we're using, a mini golden eye. So this deep water, it takes a minute to get down there. We're just kind of slow trolling, if you call it, or, you know, jigging it off the bottom. And I'm keeping a real close eye on my depth finder, making sure I'm marking stuff on the bottom. And if I quit marking stuff, I just turn the trolling motor on a little, and I just mosey around the lake until I start marking a lot of stuff, and then I hone in on that area. Look, if you look at the depth finder right now, you'll see we're coming across a school of bait fish or something as we speak. So I'm gonna focus on that school of bait fish. The transducer's right here. So we got a school of something right under us. And I'm just kind of basically almost vertical jigging, slightly moving. Sometimes you go to lift up on it to jig it again and you just feel weight, and sometimes the bait will be falling back to the bottom and you'll feel them thump it. That last one thumped it pretty good. That was a nice bite. But crappie aren't always on the bottom. You're going to pay close attention to when your line's falling. If you're getting a lot of hits up high, you might want to use a lighter jig head. There he is. See, it was falling and I felt him thump it. Boom! And they just suck, they inhale it, they suck it in. And that is exactly how you do it. So you wanna, in the wintertime, you wanna fish these guys deep. They like to get deep, same in the dead of the summer. And then when it's just a tough style of fishing a bait that tiny and that deep of water. That's why people struggle with this fish, including myself. A lot of times, and everybody loves the crappie fish when they get tight to the banks and the brush piles in like early March when they're spawning. Then it becomes super easy. But until that happens, they're just meandering around out in this deep water, and you just got to fish slow and cover ground and pay close attention. Good old green trout, AKA the largemouth bass. As you saw in that last episode when we were trolling, we caught quite a few of these. This is a little knothead right here. They got some really nice bass when you're jigging out in the middle like this, you know. A lot of people are accustomed to beating the banks all the time when you're bass fishing. And I'm not saying there's not any bass on the shorelines, but again, when the crappie get off deep in the wintertime, a lot of times the bass do also. You know, you see those bass professionals with all of that live scoping and all these electronics nowadays. They just come across lakes and fish deep 10, 20, 30 foot drop-offs and such, and they're just looking at their electronics the whole time, and you're just looking for some activity on that electronics. And I don't have all the live scope and all, but I have a lot of different ways to look at what's underneath the boat under the transducer, and I like to really, I pay a lot of attention to making sure that we're marking stuff on the GPS. That's extremely critical when we're looking for these crappie. I do not like to see a straight bottom, flat bottom when I'm doing this, and the same thing when I'm trolling for trout and such. I want to be seeing and marking some stuff. There's a good one. There's a good one. There's a good one, baby. Come on up here. Oh, he's kind of fat. I mean, this is my little bitty trout rod I'm using, and he's bending it pretty good. Look at that. Got it choked. That's how you want to hook them right there, is right in the top roof of their mouth, if you're lucky enough to do that. They call these fish the paper mouths. That's because these outside parts, like where I'm putting this lure now, very, very, very soft. It tears very easily. But when you hook them right in the roof of their mouth, you can fight them all day. And that's a solid 1.5 pound, 1 3/4 fish right there. That's what we're looking for right there, guys. That's a nice one to end this episode on. All right, guys, go ahead and close it out here. This time of year, a lot of times we put this Pango on the trailer, travel around a little bit. You see in our last episode, we went red fishing, wintertime red fishing around Chalmette. We do a lot of crappie fishing this time of year, all the way into February and March. Once we get back into April, the boat goes back behind the house, as everybody knows the bridges catch fire and everything else on the eastern end of Lake Pontchartrain. But hope you like this crappie video, using the Blue Horizon this time on the Golden Eye mini jig head. We're going to be sending a lot of mini jig heads and a lot of Matrix minis out in this month's bait box. Make sure you subscribe to that. The minis don't work just for crappie. They're fabulous bass baits and incredible night fishing baits for speckled trout if you got dock lights behind your house. So make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, guys. We do a little bit of everything out here in the South. So till next time, good fishing.